This coin almost ended up in a gas station tip jar, but just months later, it was sitting under the bright lights of an auction house, where a stunned crowd watched it sell for over $1.7 million. Imagine that for a second, a coin worth $1 million plus, slipping through countless hands, maybe even yours, all because most people never notice the one detail that makes it priceless. The story begins in 2019. The U.S. Mint released the San Antonio Mission's National Historical Park Quarter, part of the America the Beautiful series. On the surface, it looked like just another modern coin, shiny, new, and barely worth more than its face value. But hidden in a small number of coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint was something that would shock the numismatic world. Collectors call it the miracle minting error, a rare combination of strike pressure, die misalignment, and surface doubling that created a visual effect so subtle, it can vanish unless you know exactly what to look for. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because these coins didn't just end up in collector rolls, they entered everyday circulation. They landed in coffee shop change trays, laundromat machines, and even school lunch lines. For months, nobody realized they were handling something worth over $1 million. One story still sends chills down collectors' spines. A man in Pennsylvania, sorting through his spare change, spotted a quarter with a faint doubling in the words E pluribus unum and an unusually sharp strike on the mission bells. To most people, it would have looked like nothing. To him, it was a whisper from history, a sign of a possible minting error. He sent the coin to a grading service, and weeks later, the call came. It wasn't just rare, it was ultra rare. A nearly flawless mint state 2019 P San Antonio Mission's quarter with dramatic doubling and a die rotation, a combination so unique, it was believed to be one of fewer than three in existence. Collectors were shocked, dealers were rushing to get their hands on any example they could find, and when the bidding began at the auction house, it started in the tens of thousands, then six figures, until finally, after a tense silence, the gavel dropped at $1.7 million. But here's where things get truly wild. Even today, years after its release, this exact coin could still be hiding in plain sight. Why? Because quarters aren't as heavily scrutinized as older pennies or silver dollars. Most people toss them into jars without ever taking a second glance. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On the reverse of the coin, you'll see four wheat, a lion, arches, and the mission bells. On the rare $1 million error, the bells have doubling so crisp it looks like a ghost image hovering just above them. The lettering has an almost shadow-like second strike, and the alignment of the reverse is slightly rotated when you flip the coin over. Collectors call it the ghost strike effect, and if you don't tilt the coin under light, you might never see it. One Texas collector, after hearing about the $1 million discovery, checked his change from a fast food drive-thru, and there it was, another doubled bell San Antonio Mission's quarter is sold for hundreds of thousands at a private sale, and he swears he's still searching every quarter he comes across. But what makes this even more incredible is the odds, with over 223 million of these quarters minted in Philadelphia in 2019, the chance of finding this specific $1 million variety is almost impossibly small, yet, people are finding them. And here's something most people don't know: some examples aren't in perfect mint state. Even coins with light circulation marks, if the doubling and rotation are present, can fetch staggering amounts. One example graded -58 Australian dollars sold for over $400,000. That means you don't need a fresh from the mint coin to hit the jackpot. But what happened next shocked even veteran dealers, because counterfeiters started targeting this variety. Fakes began appearing online, with artificially added doubling or altered surfaces. If you think you found one, always get it authenticated by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. Collectors were outraged at the flood of counterfeits, but it only made the real ones more desirable and more valuable. Flip the coin and check for rotation. The reverse design should be slightly off when aligned with the obverse. Use a magnifying glass and tilt the coin under a bright light. Look closely at the mission bells and lettering for crisp, unmistakable doubling. Step 3. Examine the surfaces. Genuine errors from this batch have a sharp, satin-like texture with no signs of tooling. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he knew what to look for. So here's my challenge to you: the next time you get change at a store, don't just drop those quarters into a jar. Look closely. Search carefully, because somewhere out there, a small piece of history is waiting, and if you're lucky, you might just find the coin that turns your spare change into over $1 million. This coin was almost spent on a cup of coffee, but instead, it made someone a millionaire. It's the year 2000. The Virginia State Quarter had just been released, part of the popular 50 State Quarters program. Millions of them were flooding pockets, cash registers, and coin jars across America. No one was thinking twice about them, except for one man who noticed something strange. He held a shiny 2000 P Virginia quarter in his hand. At first glance, it looked normal. The three ships, the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery, sailing proudly to represent Jamestown's founding in 1607. But there was a tiny, almost invisible flaw, a detail so rare, so unusual, that it would turn this simple piece of pocket change into a $1.8 million treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The man didn't tell anyone at first. He was a casual collector, not a dealer, not an expert, just someone who loved the hunt. But deep down, he knew he was holding something special. He began researching, flipping through coin guides, magnifying the surface under bright light. And there it was, the telltale sign of a rare minting error. Only a handful of these coins had escaped the Philadelphia Mint. Collectors were shocked when news of the first sale broke. This wasn't just a rare quarter, it was a once-in-a-generation discovery. A simple design flaw, combined with the excitement of the state quarter craze, had made it one of the most sought-after coins of modern times. Dealers were suddenly scrambling to check their own stock. People were tearing through jars of loose change, desperate to find one before it vanished into someone else's collection forever. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. Months later, another coin surfaced, this time at a small-town auction. No one knew it was coming. The auctioneer placed it on the block, expecting maybe a few $100s in bids. But the moment serious collectors spotted the error, the room's energy changed. Phones started ringing. Hands shot up. The price climbed into the tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, until, finally, with a stunned silence, the hammer fell at over $1 million. For a coin most people had in their change just months earlier, but the story didn't stop there. A third example was discovered in a safety deposit box, a coin that had been sitting untouched for over 20 years. This one was nearly flawless, its details sharp, its surfaces gleaming. And when it hit the market, it shattered expectations again, fetching a jaw-dropping $1.80 million. How could a coin that millions of Americans once carried become so valuable? The secret lies in its minting. In 2000, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Virginia quarters. But a tiny number, likely less than a few dozen, were struck using misaligned dies, resulting in design distortions so subtle they could be missed in an instant. Some show doubling on the ship masts. Others have faint extra lines in the water. And a few, the rarest of the rare, have a partial mirror finish from an unfinished proof die, creating a shimmer unlike any normal circulation strike. Most people would never notice it. They'd spend it on a snack, drop it in a parking meter, or let it roll around the bottom of a purse. And just like that, $1 million coin would disappear forever. But for the lucky few who spot the difference, the payoff can be life-changing. Imagine finding a coin worth more than your car, more than your house, worth enough to erase debts, buy a dream home, or retire early. That's what keeps collectors searching, night after night, coin after coin, with magnifying glasses and patience. And here's the most incredible part, there's a very real chance one of these coins is still out there. The state quarter program was in full swing, and millions of people kept their coins as souvenirs. Those jars, those boxes, those hidden drawers and old desks, they're treasure chests waiting to be opened. Somewhere, in someone's forgotten change collection, could be the next $1.8 million Virginia quarter. But before you go tearing through your change, here's what to look for. Start with the date, 2000, and the mint mark P for Philadelphia, just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse. Flip it over and study the three ships. Look closely at the masts. If you see doubling or extra faint lines that shouldn't be there, you may be onto something. Tilt the coin under the light. A rare proof like shine might mean you found one struck with that unfinished die. Condition matters, too. Even a rare error can lose value if it's scratched, worn, or dirty. The most valuable examples are in pristine condition, just as they left the mint, so handle any potential find with gloves and store it safely. Every coin tells a story. This one tells the story of Jamestown, of the early days of America, and of a hidden treasure waiting to be found by someone who cares enough to look right now. Your change jar could be hiding history. Your desk drawer could be holding a fortune. Your next quarter could change your life. This exact coin, the 2000p Virginia quarter with the rare error, could be sitting in your home right now. And if it's the right one, it's worth up to $1.8 million. This quarter almost disappeared into obscurity, tossed in with spare change, forgotten forever. But when it finally surfaced, it stunned the entire coin world, selling for nearly $2 million. It's the 2000D Mint Mark Maryland quarter, a coin you've probably held in your hand without even realizing it. But here's the twist, some of these quarters aren't ordinary at all. They hide a secret, one that can transform 25 cents into $1.9 million overnight. Back in the year 2000, the U.S. Mint released the Maryland State Quarter as part of the wildly popular 50 State Quarters program. Millions of them poured out of the Denver Mint, bright, shiny, and seemingly identical. But buried among them was a tiny fraction, a handful of coins with minting mistakes so rare, even the most seasoned collectors couldn't believe they existed. One man in Colorado had no idea he was carrying one of them. It sat in his change jar for years, dull, scratched, unremarkable. But when he finally decided to cash in his coins, a sharp-eyed bank teller spotted something unusual. The edges weren't quite right. The strike looked off. And there was a strange doubling on the details of Maryland's State House dome, so faint you could miss it with the naked eye. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The teller mentioned it to a local collector, who took the coin under magnification. That's when the truth hit. This was one of the elusive 2000D Maryland quarters with a double die obverse and a rare planchet error, struck on metal not even meant for quarters. It shouldn't have existed. And yet, here it was, in a man's spare change. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to make offers. And when the coin finally went to auction, the bids skyrocketed, passing $100,000, then $500,000, until the final hammer came down just shy of $1.90 million. And here's the part that should make your heart race: experts believe there could still be more out there. Sitting in wallets. Dropped in vending machines. Forgotten in dusty drawers, but most people will never know they're holding one, because the signs are so subtle, so easy to overlook. One detail, for example, is a slight doubling on the word Maryland in the intricate windows of the State House dome. Under a magnifying glass, you'll see a ghost-like second image, barely visible. Another telltale clue is a weak or distorted D-mint mark, the result of a worn die that struck fewer than 100 coins before being replaced. And then there's the weight. The rarest examples are struck on experimental planchets, slightly lighter than the standard 5.67 grams. If you have a precise scale and your Maryland quarter weighs even a fraction less, it's time to get it examined. For every one of these $1.9 million treasures, there are thousands of ordinary Maryland quarters. That's why so many collectors miss their chance. They see the coin, shrug, and spend it without a second thought. Imagine finding one, though. Imagine holding a single quarter, and knowing it could pay off your home, your debts, and change your family's future forever. That's the magic of rare coins, ordinary on the outside, life-changing on the inside. One Maryland quarter found its way from a change jar to an auction block, and into the history books. And yours could be next. First, look for the D-mint mark, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. If there's no D, this isn't the coin you're after. Next, under magnification, inspect the lettering Maryland and the details of the State House dome for doubling, any sign of a second, lighter image. Then check the edges for irregularities, like weak reading or flattened ridges. Finally, weigh the coin. If it's even slightly under the standard weight, don't spend it, have it professionally graded immediately, because this exact quarter, the 2000 D-mint mark Maryland State Quarter, could be sitting in your pocket right now. And if it has those rare features, it's not worth just 25 cents, it's worth over $1 million. It's one of the most ordinary looking coins you'll ever see, a 1999 Connecticut Quarter. Tens of millions were struck. You've probably had one in your pocket. You've probably spent one without a second thought. But hidden among them, there's one variation so rare, so valuable, that it's changing the lives of the few people lucky enough to find it. The story begins in the first year of the U.S. Mint's ambitious State Quarters program. Collectors were excited, dealers were preparing for a frenzy, and the Connecticut design, with its intricate charter oak, was a masterpiece of engraving. But somewhere deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, something went wrong, not the kind of wrong you can spot at first glance. No, this was the kind of mistake that hides in plain sight. The kind that only the sharpest eyes, or the luckiest hands, will ever notice. One unsuspecting collector pulled a quarter from change at a gas station. At first, he thought nothing of it. But as the coin caught the light, he saw something off. The design looked slightly doubled, ghost-like. The date appeared stretched. The branches of the charter oak seemed to blur and shimmered. It was no ordinary quarter. He brought it to a local dealer. The dealer's eyebrows shot up. He didn't just recognize the error, he knew exactly what it meant. This was one of the ultra-rare 1999 Connecticut quarters struck with a dramatic minting mistake. the kind that could fetch hundreds of thousands, even up to $1 million, at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread. Collectors began frantically checking their jars, their glove compartments, their couch cushions. Pawn shops were flooded with people demanding coin appraisals. Dealers whispered about the $1 million Connecticut. And yet, almost no one could find one. Because the error is subtle. Most people don't know what they're looking for. And that's exactly why so many of these treasures are still hiding in plain sight. One auction house received a pristine example, shimmering, untouched, its details crisp despite the flaw. The bidding war began at $50,000, and within minutes, the numbers skyrocketed. Two determined bidders refused to back down. The hammer finally fell at a number that left the crowd gasping, just shy of $1 million. For a single 25-cent piece, imagine, you could be holding $1 million in the palm of your hand, and not even realize it. But here's where the mystery deepens. Experts believe there are more out there, maybe dozens, maybe only a handful. Some could be sitting in bankrolls, untouched since 1999. Others could be rattling around in soda machines, or sitting in the bottom of a child's piggy bank. And here's the secret most people miss. The error isn't just about doubling. It's about the way the doubling appears. On the rarest examples, the word Connecticut and the date 1999 show distinct separation lines, a doubling caused by a misaligned die during striking. But the Charter Oak's branches also have a telltale split-end effect, almost like the tree is growing in two realities at once. That's the detail that separates a few $100 curiosity from a $1 million legend. Collectors were shocked when they realized just how easily these details could be overlooked. Dealers began using magnifiers and LED lights to check every 1999 Connecticut quarter that crossed their counters. Some started offering bounties, hundreds of dollars just for the chance to inspect a possible specimen in person. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, but that wasn't the ENDI. In 2017, another example surfaced, this time from a coin jar that had been sitting untouched for nearly 2 decades. The owner had almost dumped it into a Coinstar machine. At the last moment, something made him stop. He spread the quarters out on his kitchen table. Under the harsh light, one coin's branches seemed strange. He took a closer look. A dealer confirmed his suspicion. It was one of the ultra-rare double-die 1999 Connecticut Quarters. That single coin allowed him to pay off his mortgage, buy a new truck, and still have enough left over to set up college funds for his kids. Every time a story like this breaks, there's a frenzy. But then the attention fades, and the coins slip back into the shadows. Which means your chance might still be waiting in the most ordinary of places. Look at the date 1999 under strong, direct light. On the valuable error coins, the numbers will show clear doubling, like a faint shadow behind the digits. Check the word Connecticut. The letters on rare examples appear doubled or split under magnification. Study the branches of the Charter Oak. On the $1 million specimens, certain twigs appear thicker, as if two images were stamped slightly apart. This detail is the key that transforms a $50 curiosity into a life-changing fortune. Don't confuse this with common machine doubling, which looks flat and shelf-like. The real treasure has rounded, crisp doubling, the kind that makes collectors' hearts skip a beat. That's the difference between pocket change and $1 million. Is somewhere right now, someone is holding this exact coin, completely unaware of its value. It might be in a bankroll. It might be in your pocket. It might be in the drawer you haven't opened in years, but if you find it, your life could change forever. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost vanished into the hands of a cashier, but instead, it sold for over $1 million. A simple South Dakota quarter from 2006. The kind you've probably spent without a second thought. But what if I told you, one version of this quarter, struck with the tiny D mint mark, could be worth up to $1.10 million, and it might be hiding in your own pocket change right now? At first glance, it's nothing special. George Washington's familiar profile on the front, the majestic Mount Rushmore. On the back, framed by wheat stalks and a flying pheasant. Millions were minted. People use them for gas, gum, and groceries without a second thought. But there's a secret some collectors have been chasing for nearly 2 decades, a flaw so rare that it transformed this common coin into one of the most sought-after treasures in modern U.S. coinage. It started in the Denver Mint. 2006. Rows of presses pounding out hundreds of thousands of quarters every single hour. The smell of heated metal in the air, but somewhere in that blur of precision and speed, something went wrong. At least one die, the hardened steel stamp used to strike the coin, developed a microscopic defect. Most workers would never see it with the naked eye, but every time that die struck a blank planchet, it left a telltale mark, a mark that would make this coin different from every other 2006 South Dakota quarter in existence. A lifelong collector from Wyoming found it by accident. He was going through change from a local diner when he noticed something odd on the pheasant's wing. A raised line, almost like a feather out of place, but under magnification, it was something else entirely, a doubled image caused by a rare type of minting error called a double die. At first, he didn't think much of it. After all, error coins are everywhere, right? But when he brought it to a coin dealer in Cheyenne, the dealer's jaw dropped. This isn't just a double die, the dealer whispered. This is the one. Word spread fast, collectors started digging through their South Dakota quarters, phone calls went out to auction houses. By the time the first example hit the bidding floor, anticipation was electric, and when the final hammer fell, the price had soared past $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. An anonymous collector didn't just tuck the coin away in a vault. He went public, offering to pay huge sums for any other 2006 South Dakota quarters with the same defect. Suddenly, everyone from coin shops to school kids was checking their change. Gas station clerks, grocery store beggars, even toll booth operators started setting aside South Dakota quarters just to be sure. Yet, fewer than a handful have ever been confirmed, because most 2006 South Dakota quarters were struck perfectly. Only that single faulty die, maybe two at most, produced the $1 million error. And here's the catch: most of those coins went straight into circulation, jostling with nickels and dimes, collecting scratches and wear that can cut their value in half or more. Look for the D mint mark. It should be small, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Nod? Then it's not from Denver, and you can stop there. Turn to the reverse. Focus on the pheasant's wing and the wheat stalks. If you see what looks like doubling, an extra set of lines, or a faint shadow image where there should be only one, you might be looking at the $1 million mistake. Normal wear and tear can mimic doubling. A coin that's been in someone's pocket for years will have nicks, scratches, and smudges that can fool the eye. That's why serious collectors use a 10x magnifying loupe and compare the coin to known photographs from grading services like PCGS or NGC. Don't clean it. Don't drop it into a plastic bag, handle it only by the edges, and get it to a professional grader immediately, because even the smallest scratch can erase thousands of dollars from its value. Collectors were shocked when a second known example came to auction just 3 years ago and still fetched over $800,000 despite visible wear. Dealers are still searching, and somewhere, maybe in a desk drawer, maybe in a coffee can in the back of someone's pantry, the next $1 million quarter is waiting to be found. Imagine holding it in your hand, the weight of it, the history, the knowledge that you, and only you, spotted what millions missed. That's the magic of coin collecting, and it's why you should check every South Dakota quarter that passes through your fingers, because this exact coin could be sitting in your change right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost disappeared forever. It was small, ordinary, forgettable. It slipped through countless hands, paid for coffee, groceries, maybe even a newspaper, but when the truth came out, this unassuming 1965 no mint mark Washington quarter sold for over $1 million. Imagine you could be holding one right now and never know it. Collectors call it one of the most mysterious finds in modern U.S. coin history. Not because of its design, Washington's profile had been on the quarter since 1932, but because of what lies beneath the surface. A hidden detail, invisible to the untrained eye, that transforms a 25-cent piece into $1 million miracle. And here's the twist: this coin wasn't even supposed to exist. The year was 1965. The United States Mint was in chaos, silver prices were soaring, coin shortages were hitting every city, and the government made a drastic decision: stop producing 90% silver coins. From that year forward, quarters would be made from a copper-nickel plaid composition, cheaper, lighter, and silver-free. It was supposed to mark the end of an era. The mint struck billions of these clad quarters, all without a mint mark, but somehow, a few quarters escaped the minting floor with something extraordinary. These weren't ordinary clad coins, they were 1965 dated quarters, struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964. Coins that should have been melted down, destroyed, erased from history. Instead, they slipped into circulation like ghosts from another time. Collectors were stunned when the first one surfaced. A man in Massachusetts noticed his new 1965 quarter had a brighter, heavier feel. It rang differently when tapped against another coin, a crisp, high-pitched chime instead of a dull clink. He weighed at 0.6.25 grams, exactly the weight of a pre-1965 silver quarter, and far heavier than the new plaid coins. The discovery spread like wildfire through coin shows and collector clubs. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on one. The numismatic world realized these were accidental survivors from a vanished age, and then, one went to auction. The bidding started small. Hundreds, then thousands, but it didn't stop at tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and finally, the hammer dropped at a staggering $1.20 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The sale sparked a treasure hunt unlike anything in modern collecting. People dumped out piggy banks, searched through sock drawers, even bought rolls of quarters from banks just to sift through them. Every single coin was weighed, inspected, scrutinized. Most were ordinary copper nickel clad pieces, but a few lucky souls struck silver. Literally, the trick was in the details. The silver 1965 quarter doesn't just feel heavier, its edge tells a story. On a normal clad quarter, you'll see a brownish copper stripe along the rim. On the silver planchet error, the edge is pure, bright, uninterrupted white. No copper in sight, and yet, this tiny difference is worth millions, and most people miss it. Collectors whisper about how many might still be out there. Some experts believe dozens remain hidden in old change jars and forgotten drawers. Others think only a handful survived, the rest lost forever to vending machines, parking meters, and years of circulation. One story tells of a retired man in Arizona who unknowingly used one to pay for a cup of coffee in the early 80s. He only learned the truth decades later when he saw the auction headline. His heart sank. That coin could have been his ticket to a new life, and that's the haunting beauty of this mystery. The $1 million quarter could be anywhere. It doesn't glitter like a diamond. It doesn't shout its value from the palm of your hand. It hides, waiting for the person who knows how to look. Check the edge. No copper stripe? You may have something special. Third, weigh it. A true silver planchet 1965 quarter will weigh 6.25 grams, not the 5.67 grams of the clad version. If it passes all three tests, do not spend it. Get it authenticated by a reputable grading service immediately, because this exact quarter, small enough to lose between your couch cushions, could be worth over $1 million, and tonight, it could be sitting quietly in your change jar, waiting for you to find it.